Hello, good afternoon. I'm delighted to welcome you to this webinar on the threat landscape facing mainly small to medium companies in Ireland. So I'll just show you the outline agenda for the record. Just a couple of pieces of housekeeping. You have been muted automatically. So if you want to ask questions, please take note of where you can log questions. So on your screen there's a box provided, and it might be an idea to log questions while they're fresh in your mind. And at the end, I'll put the question to the people I think best placed to answer them. So we're also hoping to be able to offer a network health check to anyone who has a further interest in this technology and using this technology. So let us know if you, at the end or before, if you would like to pursue this. Again, you can use the question box I just referred to for that purpose. So you might be wondering, why are IT Force holding a seminar of this type now? As you are all aware, you're clients of IT Force. We're an award-winning managed service provider. We're also a Deloitte Best Managed company, and we're regarded widely by those who know us as one of the best managed services companies of our type. So we recently took the time to go around and talk to customers and as to what were the major challenges facing them. And I suppose without going into what everybody said, security and compliance came up again and again as challenges that were facing people. Security and compliance, of course, are not the same thing, so this session is going to focus on the new security challenges facing our clients, and we'll deal with compliance in a later session. In addition to that, IT Force has security at the top of its own agenda in terms of supplying our services to our clients. And for some time now, we've been looking at this new threatscape on our own behalf. As part of that, we've extensively tested the Palo Alto technology for our own needs. And basically, we've made the investment in this technology ourselves. So we've actually bought it. We bought into it. So it isn't just that, you know, we're looking at this technology and thinking it'd be great to be able to flog this to our customers. We're in it too. So finally, then, this is a changing scene. The one thing we can all be sure of is that this problem won't go away. It will change and probably evolve. And then we have this EU directive that everybody's talking about now called GDPR, which will become legislation in May 2018, and it's quite onerous. If you're not familiar, GDPR stands for General Data Protection Regulation. It was issued by an offshoot of the European Parliament. We have a document listing the headlines associated with GDPR if anyone would like a copy, and if so, again, you can just use the box for questions if you'd like us to send it on to you. So that's it by way of introduction. I'd like to hand you over now to Mark Skelton, who will talk a bit more about this whole area. Over to you, Mark.
Okay, John, I hope you all can hear me okay. My name is Mark Skelton. I'm the Chief Technology Officer for IT Force. I'm basically the head techie for the company. I'm going to go through just a few slides. They're not particularly technical. And what I'm going to talk is what I call the traditional approach to threat management, how we manage this threat landscape, as John put it there. I'm just going to paint out these slides over a few minutes, if you'll allow me. So we're going to start with the traditional approach to threat management. There's two players in this game, I suppose. There's the good guys and the bad guys. We're the good guys, I think, at least. I'm not so sure sometimes, but no, I think we're the good guys. You obviously are the good guys. You're users that you're trying to protect from the bad guys. The bad guys are the spammers, the scammers, the hackers, people that are trying to steal your credit card details or encrypt your data and make you pay money to have it decrypted, etc. And so basically the name of the game here is to keep the bad guys away from the good guys. Basically, up until now, we've used 3 or 4 different technologies working together side by side, I guess, to try and achieve this. Pretty much everyone, all organizations, would start with a firewall of some description. So that's the piece of kit you put in front of your network connection, your internet connection. It does various things depending on how good it is. They'll certainly all have access rules deciding what network traffic can get in and out of the network. Most of them will do packet inspection, so looking at the network packets, trying to see if there's something funny going on. You're trying to, break the rules by sending packets in the wrong order and stuff like that. A lot of them would do intrusion protection or prevention. So this is getting a little bit deeper into the packets, using maybe signature-based scanning, looking for known types of hacks. Maybe somebody's trying to break your website by doing a buffer overflow or something like that, or inject some SQL code into a database, that type of stuff. Some of them have, you know, fully blown antivirus built into them, so that you know, when you're downloading something, it'll scan it as it comes in. So that's your firewall. They do other things like VPN, you know, providing secure access. So for the longest time, that's been the de facto first line of defense against the bad guys. After that, most organizations would have some form of a proxy server or a web filtering, a web content management solution. So this is usually a box of tricks that sits somewhere on your network, which does various things for you. Web filtering being one of the more obvious ones. So it'll, you know, decide what websites you can or can't go to, keep your users away from stuff that maybe, you know, they definitely shouldn't be near. Also, maybe, you know, not spending their whole time on, you know, non-business related sites, maybe their whole day on car auction sites or updating their social media status. A lot of them would also do antivirus. So, you know, you're downloading a file, etc. It'll scan it for known virus signatures at the time. Possibly a less obvious function that they did, but a very important one, is basically blocking malware. Most types of threats, most types of malware have a web component. So very typically an email comes into your inbox, and in that email there's a link, and they're trying to get you to click on that link. So if your proxy server would know that that link was somehow going to a dodgy site, and it would block it, and that's how things worked until quite recently, as we'll talk. They did various other things as well, but those were the key functions in terms of threat management. Again, email content management would be another important component here. Again, as I said, most, I suppose the most common source of any type of malware now is through email, an email coming in. So your email content management, one of the big things it did was to do an anti-spam. I'm sure we all remember the good old days, and maybe we still get them, where we get lots and lots of emails offering us services that perhaps we don't want, or offering us, you know, untold fortunes if we just pass over our bank account details so they can transfer the money in from somebody in some nice country somewhere. They also, a lot of them will do an antivirus, so scanning emails and email attachments for known viruses. Those were the main functions that it did, and that could be an on-premise solution, or very often it could be an externally hosted, or even part of your hosted email solution. So, you know, Gmail or Office 365 email, that kind of comes built into that. And I suppose the final pillar then of threat management tended to be here. So you're going to have some PCs, some laptops, etc. in your business, probably some servers, all running Windows operating system, and you would stick an antivirus product on those, and that would again scan those in real time, looking for known threats based on the signatures. Okay, and in fact, antivirus very often, particularly for larger organizations, would be across all the various layers from your firewall through to your web and email content management and down to your servers and PCs. And that was pretty much it. There's obviously more to IT security than this, but from a threat management kind of antivirus, anti-malware point of view, those were the kind of four main pillars that people have used for a long time now, I guess, to manage. And I guess that begs the question, well, what's wrong with this? I mean, it looks like a fairly decent solution. Surely you've got, you know, your firewall is stopping all the bad stuff coming in. You've got web and email content management. You've got antivirus on your systems. And so what's wrong with it? There's more or less a one-word answer to this, although it is somewhat simplistic, is ransomware. Okay, that's again somewhat simplistic because there are other types of malware and other types of threats, but this was the big one that really changed everything, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a while. Okay, so as I said, now I suppose the question I'm going to pose now is, why is this? Why did this happen? My colleague Dom will be along in a few minutes, and he's going to get more into the technical details of how this is happening and what's happening, and I guess more importantly, what you can do to protect yourself against it. But I'm going to pose a slightly different question as well. Why did this happen? You know, this lovely firewall that I spent a fortune on a couple of years ago now, and it's, you know, why isn't that working anymore? I've got a really good antivirus product I've been using for years. It's top best known brand, etc. You know, why isn't this working anymore? To get some insight into that, we probably need to go look back at who these bad guys are that I talked about earlier. Back in the day, I don't know, back in the 90s or whatever, your bad guy was your kind of stereotype was the you know, the spotty teenager sitting alone in his bedroom writing this stuff, probably a bit of a stereotype or a bit of a simplification, but it tend to be that. It tend to be loners, people who were doing it because they could, maybe to impress themselves or their friends. That, you know, evolved over time, you know, into things like activists, people with a political message to spread, and etc. The big thing about these people is not that they weren't causing trouble, but they weren't specifically in it for the money. They weren't specifically after your data. And very often they weren't out to really harm anybody. That's not to say they didn't, but that wasn't their game. Now, that changed over time. Certainly in the noughties, criminal elements started to get involved. I kind of call them amateur criminals. Maybe I'm not really doing them justice here, but these were tended to be small one-person outfits or relatively small outfits. They typically targeted the, you know, the consumer, the home user market, and the small to medium enterprise. They weren't really a match for large, you know, corporates, etc., that would have all of those technologies I talked about a minute ago, that would be more than capable of dealing with them. Okay, now this changed in the last couple of years. It's hard to put an exact date on it. It's pretty much 3 years to the day, I believe, since the first instance of ransomware, the first big one went wild. I think it was 2013. I'm losing track of the years myself at this stage. But certainly in the last year or two, it's changed. And what's really changed is this whole thing has become big business, and I mean big business. I'll throw a couple of stats at you. I honestly can't remember where I got them, but they are real stats. Got them from the internet, so they must be true. Cybercrime is now more profitable than the drugs trade. Now, that's quite the statistic if you think about it. It's more profitable than the drugs trade. What that means is that large, major international criminal gangs are getting involved in this. You know, people that might have been, I don't know, running drugs in South America or arms dealers in Russia or something. And I'm not making this up. This is real. These are the type of people that are getting involved in this, and they're formidable opponent. And that's really without getting into the technicalities of how this is happening. This is the why. Another statistic I got from one of the research companies was that cybercrime costs are projected to reach $2 trillion per annum by 2019. I think it's something like $500 billion at the moment, so it's pretty much doubling, or in or around doubling every year or so, they say. So this is just, it's unbelievable money, and that's why so much it has been put into this, and this is why even the largest of organizations, you know, that have had these traditional best-of-breed firewalls, antivirus, etc., they're actually able to get through this. They're able to break their way through it, and certainly the SME state really is vulnerable. There's a couple of other things really that have just aligned to make this happen. Particularly in the last year, this whole idea of ransomware as a service. I know I'm focusing a lot on ransomware. There's lots of other threats out there, but this tends to be the one that grabs people's attention. So these go back to my criminals I talked about earlier. It's not that you know, you're running drugs one day and you decide, you know what, I'll go and do a degree in IT and become an IT security expert or a programmer. They subcontract out that element of it. And in fact, now you can actually do. There are people providing this online as a service. You know, the same way we might use an online, you know, CRM or an accountancy package online. And these, you know, these companies, they're not particularly reputable, but they'll have help desks you can ring and log calls with them. Again, it's pretty unbelievable what's going on. So that's been one of the big things that's allowed this to explode. That, you know, anybody of a mind with a few a few dollars, I guess, to spare can get involved in this now quite easily. Another very big thing that happened in the last couple of years has been the whole cryptocurrency thing, particularly Bitcoin. This has allowed them to basically get the ransoms out of people. You know, gone are the days that you have to stick a suitcase full of cash and throw it off a railway bridge or something like that. There's very, very little risk to them, if any, when you use Bitcoin, because there's no way of tracing it. You know, this has been ongoing for, I suppose, a good few years, but, you know, a few years ago you might have had to be doing it through dodgy bank accounts somewhere in the Caymans or something like that. But even then, it was possible. There was a risk of being caught, and that's been clamped on a lot. But this, you know, the combination of using ransomware as a service, making it easy for these people, and then the advent of the likes of Bitcoin really has just made it an awful lot easier for the bad guys to get at your aforementioned good guys. Okay. I'm pretty much coming to the end of my slides, and I'm going to hand over in about a minute or so to Dom. So hopefully, Dom, if you're there, you can be getting ready. I just wanted to recap a little bit on what I was talking about. Is that basically the traditional approach that we've all used for, I guess, the last 10 years to threat management is no longer adequate. I'm not going to say the technicalities of why that's happened, but really the reason it did happen is because major criminal gangs are getting involved in this. And Dom, I'm hoping you're there.
Yeah, absolutely, Mark. Thank you.
Okie dokie. Thanks very much for that. So I'm going to hand over to Livia in Dom's hands, and I'll probably come back in a little while during the questions and answer section. Thanks, Dom, and over to you.
Cool, thank you, Mark. So welcome to my hands. My name is Dom. I work for NextGen, which is the distributor of Palo Alto Networks products for Ireland, and I'm a senior network security consultant, which means that I am basically in the trenches all the time, fighting all of these bad people, bad guys that Mark was talking to you about in the last couple of minutes. Okay, so I'm in the wild. Deploying these solutions, designing solutions with Palo Alto Networks, implementing them, configuring, and basically fighting every single day to kind of keep these guys at bay, which is getting to be more and more difficult. I just want to give you, kind of a few quick, kind of latest from the trenches, okay, report to show you what are we fighting against right now. So before I even start with the slides, actually Mark just reminded me about a case 2 weeks ago with Bitcoin where basically a small company had some kind of basic firewall, like a Cisco ASA, some sort of more. They had the antivirus installed on their machines. They even had a proxy proxying their connections. However, with all of these protection levels, which you usually have, there's always a human element. So the whole attack and the whole problem started that the accounting lady who is working in this company, and she's the only one because it's a really small company, she doesn't have the habit of taking her banking USB stick, which provides dual-factor authentication, out of her PC, right? So basically what happened is she left it in her PC over the weekend. Over the weekend, hackers, because previously she received loads of emails, and even though most of them were stopped by the current spam solution and the current email solution, it isn't perfect, it cannot catch everything. So enough it was that one of them passed through. She opened one of the documents, which was completely, and I'm going to show you the example how this document look, and actually you can look at it while I talk, right? So she received a document like this, which she opened because she didn't know what is it about. She opened it, and with this, she basically opened up a backdoor into her PC. The hackers waited, who knows how long, having access to her PC, waiting for a right opportunity to strike. And this weekend, when they took over and checked what's happening on her computer, they noticed nobody is using it. It's the weekend, most likely nobody is here, and they took control, and then they did their malicious work. What did they do? They stole about 150,000 euros from their company account because net banking stick was in there, right? So they were able to reconstruct everything that she was doing with the whole remote access tool. They also had access to everything she was typing, so they knew the passwords, they knew everything. Stole 150K, and basically from her PC bought bitcoins in value of 150k euros and distributed to different Bitcoin accounts. Traceable? No way. Like Mark said, a very good example, Cayman Islands, there was a lot of more logistics that had to be included and a lot more risk if you have to physically transfer the money. It's traceable, it's cancelable, and so on and so forth. In this case, sorry, it's gone. Bitcoins, it's out in the wild. And I mentioned, notice that in my talk, I mentioned most of the traditional threat management tools. They had an antivirus, they had a small firewall, they had an anti-spam solution, they had an email security solution, they even had a proxy. So that's actually what we see in the wild is quite shocking, that both the companies who have all these layers of security and smaller companies which maybe don't even have none of this. They maybe only have an ISP router and an antivirus, a free antivirus on a PC. They're getting hit in the same rate, and this is because the hacking has become the commodity malware has become kind of a dominant way of threatening our PCs. Okay, commodity malware means targeting anyone. If you're thinking I'm small, I'm not on the target radar, most likely you're not on the target radar, but the target is everybody. They don't care. They just send billions of spam, billions of web crawlers, millions of host sweeps and stuff like this to find a hole and to drill through it. And this example which you see on the slide is one of the latest ones with which I'm pretty impressed how they did it, because this looks freaking real. Okay, I had to take a look at this document a couple of times to really notice that this Office 2016 for business, kind of a small pop-up you see in front, that's not Office. That is a GIF. That is a small image embedded into a Word file. You can see how cleverly it's hiding the valuable, the information that is needed to kind of understand what the document is about, and that's exactly what the hackers want. They want to create this kind of element of surprise, kind of a situation of insecurity where you're not sure what is this? Is this real or is this not real? This lady in accounting probably gets these kind of emails all the time. Hundreds of companies, everybody uses different invoicing. So she needs to check this. The email was looking really, really real as well. And when you think about it, it's a Word file. Can a Word file be a virus? No, you can pack some things, hide it as a Word file. The antivirus will detect it's not a Word file, and then he's going to kind of interpret this as a virus, right? But a Word file by itself is not a virus. So any antivirus, completely avoided. Okay? Email security solutions usually are configured to block executables, to block zipped files, compressed files, something like this. Word files, not really. Even if the email security system stops this, quarantines it, and checks it, it's not going to find anything in here because there's nothing malicious in this file. What is in this file is a macro that is using an exploit in Office to gain control and to simply establish a connection to other site to actually start downloading the executable, to clickbait, to force a user without even his knowledge to go to another website and download a malicious executable. Here, you might have a chance with your existing threat infrastructure. Maybe your URL filtering solution, if you have it, will catch this a malicious domain. But honestly, these hackers use dynamic domains all the time. So URL filtering is just a little bump in a road which hackers can easily avoid. Okay, and maybe the executable will be recognized as malware as it is downloading. How? Well, if any of the antivirus companies has seen it before. The problem is with the antivirus, they are all using a file-based protection, meaning they make a hash of the file and they analyze it as a file alone. But it's enough for the hacker to just change the hash a little bit, and they're doing this all the time with their cryptographic tools, right? And they avoid this step as well. So basically, for this to be recognized as a malware, you really need an intelligent piece of hardware combining loads of features together to kind of protect you against these kind of threats. Okay, and just another example, Irish water phishing campaign. I'm showing you this just to show you how hackers are up to date. You're not going to get emails about Nigerian princess anymore, or that you inherited $50 million and you just need to share your contact details with them. No, you're going to get something which is up to date, looking really good, making the situation of uncertainty even realer than it can be. Right? So pointing you to some website which you need to enter your data, where they kind of either identity theft you or steal your credit card data, whatever they can, just to gain money. Like Mark was explaining, their only sole purpose is money. It's not damage anymore. Right? Gone are the days of Windows 95 resetting every 45 seconds because someone sent you a virus which kind of does this. That's it. The idea is to gain some money. And why are we talking about Palo Alto Networks here in this threat management? Because all of these elements that Mark was mentioning, so firewall, IPS, URL filtering, email security solution, and so on and so forth, they still have their place. But the way how they operate, the whole best of breed is gone. Why? Because nobody could afford anymore all these layers of security on their own, buying all of these devices, training their people to use them, and making them work together without slowing down the traffic or making it extremely complicated. Okay? And the solution to this by a lot of the vendors out there was to combine everything into one box. This is how UTMs were created, Unified Threat Management Device. You probably heard about them, right? So let's stick everything into one box, and then it's going to be simpler, then it's going to be better, and it's gonna protect our customers. Well, the problem with all other companies is that they basically took existing threat management devices and simply bolted them on together into one box without taking the necessary rearrangement, so redesigning how this should work all together. Because as individual units, all of these devices do very specific work. You cannot just take 5 people into one room and tell them, yeah, you're gonna work together just fine. No, you need to kind of rearrange them. You need to tell them how to do it, how to work together to really provide you security. And all of these big giant companies like Cisco, Fortinet, Checkpoint, they're all implemented this model of taking existing technologies, bolting them on together, and giving you a device, which on paper looks really amazing. In practice, it really has problems with performance because those elements were not properly bound together. You can imagine this as taking an old Nokia phone and then, oh, I wish it would have GPS, and then you take a Garmin GPS and stuck it on the back of the phone with a tape. Wow, cool, now I have one device which has GPS and a phone, but is it really working together in any way? No. Is it really, working properly? Not really. And Palo Alto Networks was created because those were the guys actually working for these big companies, so they have their knowledge. The founder of Palo Alto Networks, Nir Zuk, he is actually the guy who invented the stateful firewall in Cisco with the PICs. He did work on a PICs. Okay, so this guy kind of saw, listen, we need to rearrange how we are fighting the hackers. We need to know more. We need more intelligence into this, but we need to recreate the firewall, rebuild it from scratch. None of these big companies wanted a part of this because they wanted to capitalize on their former, research and everything else. Okay, so he told them, okay, I'm going to start my own company, and they rebuilded the firewall from scratch. Okay, the whole new idea is in the core of this new firewall, and this they did it so well that in these last 10 years, how Palo Alto Networks is long on the market, they shot right straight to the top. They are the best firewall vendor at the moment in the market. By far, both by completeness of vision, meaning they really know where they want to go. They are dealing only with security. They're only doing the security. They're doing nothing else. They're not doing switches or routers or anything else, right? They're just doing the security. And they are basically leaders. Everybody else is telling, okay, we can do what Palo Alto Networks can do. Okay, when this comes from a giant like Fortinet, like when you ask a Fortinet guy, can you do this? Yeah, we can do whatever Palo Alto can do. That's comparing, and that means something. Okay, and this was recognized on the market, and it's still on the rise. Okay, it's crazy how high the demand is for these devices, simply because now they have a big advantage in front of everybody, because everybody need to rearrange again everything in their core to get to the level, but Palo Alto has a very good foundation to grow in any way that the security will take us in the future years. So how did they achieve this? Of course, hardware and software was rebuilt, rewritten, and designed to work really well together, but the key are basically a couple of things that I want to talk to you about right now. First of all, the key was getting the application identification onto the firewall. Okay, but not only as an add-on to the port protocol-based inspection, like everybody is doing, but with the Palo Alto, application identification is in the core of the firewall. Layer 7 is at the core. So any packet in there, we are analyzing it to identify really the application which is doing. Okay, so we can identify all of this traffic which you see on the left side works over ports 80 and 443. A traditional firewall has no idea of distinguishing these. A next generation firewall like Palo Alto does have the ability to identify application across all ports, across all protocols. Okay, so we can identify Facebook either if Facebook suddenly decides that they're going to work over port 5555 and not 443, we'll be able to trace this, because all of the application signatures that Palo Alto uses are not dependent on ports. They're simply really smart signatures identifying applications on any port. A lot of firewalls will tell you they do app ID, but they actually do it only on ports 80 and 443 based on a web address, which is not proper identification. Okay, so that was the main shift, to put app ID at the center, to make you choose how to control your traffic inside the firewall based on application, which is much more humanly, right? Allow YouTube, allow Facebook, block BitTorrent, not defining ports, trying to scan the ports or something like this. Okay. And also, what we get with this app ID system is incredible visibility. That's one of the also main benefits of the solution, is that you can really know what's going on in your network. You don't get a bland report of IP addresses and ports. You get a report with exactly who is using which application. And when I say who, not the IP address, not a PC, not a mobile, not an iPad, not a, I don't know, a fridges or whatever it's connecting to the internet these days, but with the capabilities of the Palo Alto firewall, you are able to leverage your directory structure. Most likely you're using something like Active Directory or maybe Novell or something like this, right? We can identify users behind those machines. We can also know in which Active Directory groups your users are located, which means we can really give you the flexibility in creating a security policy rule base exactly as you want it. Financial people can use Salesforce and web browsing. IT people can use anything. Marketing people, on top of web browsing, they can use Facebook and Twitter, but they cannot use YouTube because they're just watching movies, and so on and so forth. This kind of ability, this kind of granular control of the traffic is something which, you know, I'm not talking about threats here, but you are reducing the threat landscape hugely by knowing what's going on and allowing only what's needed and blocking everything else. That is one of the cornerstones of modern security, right, as well. So the reporting is built into the box. You get these really nice looking reports, right, with valuable information in there, but in human readable format. You're not bombed by thousands and thousands of lines of data. You really can configure and customize these reports to show you exactly what you want to see. Who used BitTorrent, who accessed a malicious web page, who maybe is showing some signs of malicious behavior. This is all displayed in these reports. Okay, but to get back on this threat management, okay, the integrated approach to threat prevention, right? The key to modern threat management is not like we distinguished already, best of breed, different devices which don't talk to each other, or solutions which never integrated this properly, but only if all of these modules are together integrated in what I kind of like to call a magic sauce. People like to call Palo Alto a magic box. I don't really call it a magic box because you need to have the knowledge to configure it properly. But magic sauce is combining all of these features, configuring all of these features together to try to stop the hacker in every step of the way that he goes. Either where he's baiting you by either spam emails or trying you to force to click something to block your access to him even then. Either to block the exploit itself with an integrated IPS system. Either to use a spyware engine to prevent the software in establishing backdoor channels to the internet, right? Antivirus engine or DNS engine to block known malware. File blocking, it gives you the ability to control which type of files you want to allow to be downloaded from the internet. One of the best security advices which I can give you is to prevent the download of executables from the internet for everybody but a select few in the company. Does your current security solution allow you this? Most likely not. To be able to recognize all the file types and allow only for certain people in your organization based on, let's say, their group membership in your Active Directory. That's crazy customizable and very, very good for security. And in the end, I didn't even mention the best thing which I think about Palo Alto is, and that's Wildfire. That is the threat, that is the zero-day threat cloud, which basically is able within minutes to analyze if some file is malicious or not. And not just by looking at signatures, but actually looking at the behavior. The file that you download from the internet, if the Wildfire never has seen it before, your firewall hasn't seen it before, it will analyze, excuse me, it will send the file to the cloud, analyze the file, and see what it's doing. Is it connecting somewhere to the internet? Is it deleting itself? Is it encrypting files? Is it deleting files? Is it sending emails? What is the behavior? And then give you a verdict that, listen, this guy 2 minutes ago received an email with this attachment, and the attachment was found malicious. Go remediate. Go see if he's now showing signs of dangerous behavior. Is the PC on? Take it off the network, and so on and so forth. So it gives you incredible ability to react. Okay, and this is just, I'm really just slowly scratching the tip of the iceberg of what this device can do and what you can do for your security with it. But however, we're here to discuss Aurora by IT Force. So why did we create this solution? Well, since this box is so advanced and so smart, right, it's a premium product that comes with a premium price. And also, you have to be really knowledgeable and have a lot of experience with it to be able to configure it properly to really gain the maximum value that you invest. A lot of the companies just buy the firewall, just put it in there, and they think they're protected. However, if they have no knowledge of configuring it and no experience and no knowledge about threats and hackers and everything, they cannot really configure it properly. So what we designed is a solution which takes best of both worlds. First of all, the solution that doesn't force you to do a capital investment up front. And the second, where we give you the value of experience and the value of our knowledge in configuring these devices. So what we basically did is take the firewall from your network, because traditionally it's usually located behind your ISP device. But now we place this into the cloud, into our data center, where your traffic goes from your site into our data center through the firewall and goes out to the internet. The location is simply just physically, it's a little bit different location. But from the traffic point of view, we can do absolutely everything in the data center without having the firewall on your premises. We simply route your traffic towards our data center to go through it and then going further on. But additionally, what we're going to do is we're going to configure this box for you initially. So we're going to implement all of our hard-earned years experience in security to configure the firewall to the level as much as we can to satisfy your needs, right? Without really blocking specific things which you might need, like maybe you want YouTube, maybe you want Facebook. So it's not like we're blocking everything and then, yeah, you're safe. No, you're going to see that we are not blocking almost any site or any application which you are used on doing. But what the value is that we implemented all of our other best practices in there. Of course, we talk to you about them, and depending on the level that you purchase of this Aurora, it kind of extends and shrinks what you can do with the box, but the reports are always here. You're always going to get reports. You're always going to get information about this box, and you will be able to customize it as well. Okay? So this is the key, right? So we took a really best solution in the market, and we made it an affordable solution for everybody. That is the whole key of the story, to try to fight these guys who are getting smarter and smarter, and we simply need some new ways to fight against them. Okay, and that's it from my side. Just a short one. I apologize if I dragged it a little bit along. I tend to get carried away when I talk about this, but it is a very interesting topic, and if anybody would like to know more, we can always do a special webinar or something like this as well. Okay, so thank you. And yeah, Mark, do you want to take over?
I will indeed. I hope you can hear me there. And you can stay on the line, Dom, just for a couple of minutes, because I might just go through some of the questions that have been coming in over the last few minutes, and I hope I've got them down right. One was, it's about ransomware, and just how common is it? I mean, is this a whole, is just people trying to spook people or invent it? Is this real, or is it happening, and how common is it?
It is very common. Okay, it is getting more and more attention with right, because this is the type of malware which basically, yeah, like you said, it does the big bang and everybody's talking about it. The problem is everybody's talking because there's simply no help against it if it manages to hit you, right? There was a case in America where some hospital was hit by ransomware for over, ransomware usually asks a couple of €100 or something like this. This hospital was blackmailed and ransomed for $1 million. And they contacted FBI and told them, listen, can you help us? And they told us, sorry, no, pay them. There's no way to get around it.
Lovely.
So it's just crazy how dangerous it is. And we see it pop up. When it pops up hard. Okay, let's just say like that. Mostly we see this kind of emails and stuff like this trying to deliver, but definitely ransomware is very high on the list of possible attacks that's happening.
Yeah, and we're seeing that as well. I mean, we typically come across 1 or 2 a month. In fact, I was in, I better not mention any names, a large government department yesterday, and they had been hit by it earlier in the week. Now, thankfully, they weren't badly damaged, they were able to recover, but I would hasten to add that they were not using the Aurora service, or they didn't have a Palo Alto device or anything like that. But yeah, it is real. It is happening out there. One question I have, another one, is how does the network health check work? So how does that, do you have to go in and throw all your existing firewalls out, and what's involved in that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a good question. I know John mentioned it at the start. So health check is a very interesting, thing that we do in companies, and we kind of mastered the art of not bugging the customer with this health check. As much as usually these devices, when someone wants to test something in your network, you need to plan where to put it and change your network infrastructure. This health check requires none of this. This health check is basically us bringing a Palo Alto Networks physical device into your company, just screwing it anywhere, right? It's not in line of your traffic. The only thing which the customer needs to prepare is one mirror port on their switch. So the traffic that goes to and from internet, they need to just mirror this or span, if they have Cisco devices, to a different port which is facing our device. So Palo Alto device is not talking to the internet. There's no tunnels. All of the data is safely stored on the box. The box is wiped upon the end of the health check, and basically we see a copy of all the traffic that goes through your network. So we are not able to block anything. We do not want to block anything. That's not the idea. If you want to test the productivity of the device in line, that's your choice, and you can do it as well. But health check is simply to show you what is going on in your network. That is what we've noticed is the biggest problem of IT security today, that the administrators and people in charge of this simply don't know what's going on. So we place this box in their network. We get a copy of all the traffic, and with this we are able to detect all of the threats, all of the bad URLs, all of the bad emails, everything that was happening during the health check, to present to you in the end a report which really outlines all the bad stuff that we found. I mean, all the stuff that we found in general. What are the trends? How are you utilizing your bandwidth, for example, and so on and so forth, with a document which really enables you to get a good start at securing your network more efficiently, to see this was happening, you should do this. This was happening, you should do this, and so on and so forth. So completely unintrusive, and testing really showing you what is happening in the network.
Actually, a question that came in at the time was basically, so your network traffic is going up to Aurora, up to Palo Alto. Can Palo Alto see my data? Can they, steal my data, or how does that work? How, in terms of security, is there a risk there?
During the health check, or during the normal operation?
They didn't specifically ask the question, but I guess during both.
No, absolutely not. So I mean, as far as we know, right? NSA and all of the other things. Are there any backdoors? I
Russian
know.
government aren't looking at this.
I have zero knowledge about this. Okay, that there is any backdoor. No, absolutely. So you will have your own logical unit of firewall. So it is a shared environment, but you have logically there has been great strides in securing specific customers' traffic. So there's simply no way, outside of someone breaking into the data center, putting some kind of cable in and cutting your cable, putting some kind of probe in between and whatnot, right? So no, absolutely, your data is secure. Nothing is sent or shared with the Palo Alto. The only communication between the firewall and the Palo Alto are software updates and dynamic updates, and that's it.
Okay. There's two questions that are probably somewhat similar, unless I've misunderstood them. One was around remote workers and people at home, because I know myself, I would see that as a potential risk. Mm-hmm. You're sitting in the office and you're protected by your Aurora, your Palo Alto is great, but then you go to a hotel or go home and bring it back in. But another question that came in was around companies that have sites across the globe. There's one company here who said they've got sites in Ireland, the US, they have their own firewalls in the ISP. So you've got a very distributed environment. So I don't know, they're slightly different questions, I know, but I don't know if you wanted to try come back at me.
No, it's perfectly fine. So we see this very often as well. So there are two different solutions that Palo Alto has for those two types of companies. So absolutely, working from home, something I really love, and a lot of people love, but of course you need to be productive at home as well, and secured at home as well. So the Palo Alto has a solution called the Global Protect solution. It's an SSL IPsec VPN solution, kind of a, you get a client which you install on a PC, and the moment that the client is booted up, it immediately connects and creates a channel towards the firewall and routes all the traffic through the firewall. And with this, you get the ability to control their traffic. So what are they able to do and what they're not able to do anywhere they go. Either they are in the company with their PC or they have brought it out, right? So they're always protected with the Palo Alto device against every threat out there, right? Because in the end, if you think about it, it is a company PC, so having the freedom to go to YouTube when you go home and not in the company, you have your own PC for that, right? This is a company PC, it needs to be protected, so it's always protected, always on. So definitely remote access is completely supported. Same thing for these kind of various distributed sites. We only name the feature differently. Here it's Global Protect. Here it's just a basic IPsec connectivity. We are able to configure IPsec tunnels to any of your locations and combine them all together so they can communicate between themselves through the firewall if needed, but also when they all go out to the internet and want to access, you can configure them to have a local breakout point, or you can configure them to have a central breakout point. It's all configurable.
There's another specific question. Is there a need to set up your existing VPN connection with Aurora after the install? So I think that's kind of answering that question a little bit, that basically Aurora can do it all if you want to.
I mean, the idea behind Aurora is that we're going to bring a device to you, and this device is going to be, have one leg in your network and the other leg facing Aurora through a tunnel. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So what other questions did we have? Oh yeah, there was a question that came through, I think specifically about Azure, a customer that has a certain amount of their infrastructure in Azure or in cloud services in general, Amazon Web Services. How would Aurora work with them? So you've got your file server, maybe some database servers sitting in Azure. You want to protect those as well. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
We're perfectly fine. We didn't have any issues. I have customers both on Azure and AWS, and we can set up the tunnels through it, or this can simply go through our firewall if you want to terminate it on some device which you have in your company. It's absolutely no issues whatsoever.
Okay, that's good. One question, I'm not quite sure if I've got the question correct, if I fully understand it, but I'll run through it. This was in relation to App ID, and what the questioner was asking is, could a hacker simulate the App ID of, say, Facebook? And just somehow subvert the whole system. Again, apologies if I've misunderstood the question, but I'll just fire that one at you, Dan.
To fake an app ID, to be honest, it's almost impossible. So to fake a Facebook would mean that you have, for example, Facebook's certificate, which is unlikely that everybody is ever going to get. To fake an app ID of some other application, you would have to have access to the source code of this machine, of this program, which also is very unlikely. So I'm working 5 years with these devices now, and I've seen zero cases of someone managing to trick the firewall into thinking that the traffic is something which something it's not.
Yeah, I'm guessing these guys wouldn't be top right of the Gartner quadrant if you could just kind of do it that easily. So that was my understanding as well. There's one or two questions coming in around the pricing of this. If you don't mind, I'm not going to get into it now. I mean, my advice would be to, come and talk to us directly for that, and also to avail of what would be a free health checker, or think of it as a test run of this solution. I mean, I know ourselves from having gone through that. That was our first engagement, and what we've seen from it. I mean, thankfully nothing too bad, but I know one thing that impressed me, for instance, was we have a very aggressive Windows update policy here, as you can well imagine. We like to think we're good at it, but within days the Aurora service had found 2 machines that hadn't been properly updated, and that I wasn't aware of for various reasons, and that type of thing just impressed me, that it was able to do that simply by looking at passively at the network traffic that was flowing throughout the network.
No, absolutely. So every single POC that I do, so every single health check or whatever you want to call it, people are usually shocked, either happy, either not happy, either they knew this was going to look like this, either they didn't know, either they're surprised. I've had cases from companies which didn't even know some software was installed, to cases where some companies' Active Directory domain controller was reachable from the internet via RDP. So when I showed him this report, he didn't believe me. So what I did, like I'm talking to you now, I shared my screen, I opened up RDP, entered his public IP address, and popped up the login screen from his domain controller to authenticate me. So what I could do is just try to brute force it, which was happening all the time, but was detected by the firewall, right? Because they opened up the port, 3389, it was open on their existing port protocol firewall. They had no idea that their domain controller is handling over 100 requests per minute for authenticating on it. So it was just a matter of time until someone manages to get in.
Okay, I think we're running out of questions at this stage. We're just a few minutes ahead of schedule, but I think we're probably good to wrap it up. I'm sure everybody's anxious to get back. I'm just going to hand you back to our esteemed Managing Director here, John Bergen, who will wrap it all up. Thanks a million, Dom, for that very, very good speak, and also for being able to answer all those questions. And hopefully I'll talk to you all again soon. Take care.
Thank you. Anytime, guys. Thank you.
Hi, well, listen, thanks to everybody. Just a very quick wrap-up. Just want to thank the speakers, thank you, all you attendees, for coming in. I hope you found it useful, and great that you could take time out of, obviously, busy schedules. Just a couple of things, just to reiterate even the health check. And if you want to avail of it, just maybe pop something in your question box at the moment. The other thing we covered was the GDPR, and this is the directive that's come from the European Parliament, which will become legislation in May 2018. If you want a document listing the headlines associated with that regulation, just let us know and we'll get you that too. And that's about it. Just to say thanks to everybody again, and we'll close it at that. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.